All righty, let's call our meeting to order and start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, it's a beautiful evening. Thank you all for coming and spending some time with us. Thank you, commissioners. First item on our agenda, we'll try to move expeditiously. I know we've got a long agenda. First item is adoption of the, Beer Board meeting first. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Turn it over to you.
All right, we'll go ahead and begin the Beer Board meeting at 7:02. Commissioners, there's 3 special event beer permits on the agenda for the Beer Board tonight, but we're going to remove 1A for this month and move it to next month because of an incomplete application. So we will move that 1A for the Hot Air Balloon Festival till May. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to 1B, which is the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival for May the 2nd. So this is a beer permit for that festival. City Manager, did you and Chief Condi review this permit? Okay.
Yeah, and their permits, you know, this organization gets their permit every year, and Chief County, I talked to them about it, no problem whatsoever.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the application beer permit for the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival?
Make a motion to approve the beer permit for the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions for this beer permit application? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. One opposed. All right, beer permit for the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival is approved. All right, moving on to our third one. This one is for the Townsend Fall Heritage and Bluegrass Festival, September 25th and 26th. City Manager, is this permit good with you and Chief Condi as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All righty. It's good with me. Do I have a motion to approve the beer permit for the Townsend Fall Heritage and Bluegrass Festival?
Make a motion to accept the beer permit for the Townsend Fall Heritage and Bluegrass Festival.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, beer permit approved, and we are closed with the beer board at 7:05. And Mr. Mayor, back to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Vice Mayor. Quite efficient. All right, let's move on to our regular Board of Commissioners meeting for April the 21st. And the first item on our agenda is to adopt the agenda. So I'll look and see if anybody wants to have any change in the agenda. We've got the first item is the consent calendar. That's where we'll approve all these things as a batch. But if somebody wants to pull out one of these items, now would be the time. Then we'll have the public input for items on the agenda. We've got 4 ordinances related to the budget. And then we've got 3 new ordinances under new business. All right. Any?
I'd like to have the maintenance pulled out because I'd like to talk about it.
Okay. Well, the maintenance, that is in the city manager's report. Okay, so we'll pull out the city manager's report and take that on its own. Anything else? motion and a second to approve our agenda with city manager's report pulled out.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our agenda is approved. First item on the agenda is the consent calendar, minus the city manager's report. So I don't know, city manager, when they do this at the county, do you have to approve that consent calendar, or do we do that automatically?
You approve these consent calendar altogether.
Okay, we'll just take it all together. Okay, so we're still working through that, how that works, but commissioners, you've all seen the reports and things on the consent calendar, so we have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, any,
So is that the parts, the maintenance parts pulled out to talk about?
yes, sir, we're pulling out the entire city
And
manager.
also like to pull out the community plan.
Well, you didn't say that before when we agreed to
We're having a
adopt
discussion.
it. Well, but we adopted the agenda, that was the time to pull out the community plan report.
That's under the.
It's under consent calendar.
It's under consent,
It's
okay.
under city manager's report,
Well,
the
it's
meeting plan, so it's all under that.
okay, we can pull out the community plan report. Let me get a, tell you what. Let's go back and take another shot at adopting the agenda. And this time, I'll ask for a motion and a second to pull out the city. Yes, sir.
If I could, so when you go to motion the consent calendar, that is the time when somebody can say, I'm going to pull this out.
Okay, so we can still do that.
Right.
Okay, we're getting used to that. So, okay, so we've had a request to pull out the community plan report. I think we can just pull it out along with the city manager report so we can talk about the maintenance. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar, which contain the minutes of our regular commission meeting from March 17th, and then it will have the finance report and the Parks and Rec Committee report.
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the consent calendar as a motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So that will make the city manager report the first item that we'll tackle. City manager, you want to give us an overview there, and I think we've got some questions on maintenance.
Yeah, so, and then really that would go under new business, number one.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to move, okay, so these, when we pull them out, we'll put them down under new business.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Jenkins, that's where they go.
Okay.
Okay, so now that takes us down to public input for items on the agenda. So this would be the time to talk about any of these items that we have on the agenda tonight. We have to sign that sheet, let's get organized. Volunteers.
Is community plan on the agenda, is that considered, I didn't know if it's.
It's going to come up under new business.
Should I speak
Do we
now?
vote at the beginning or at the end?
Well, it is on our agenda, so this is the time for public input for items on the agenda. So the community plan is
All right.
on the agenda. Now's your time.
I wasn't going to speak to y'all tonight, but I actually, when I got back home, I realized I won't be here next month. So, think y'all should have my comments. The CPAC and Planning Commission have my comments on the community plan. The only thing I want to emphasize to y'all from my point of view, that I would love to see y'all and the Planning Commission, however y'all want to do it, to try to put some priorities to the 50 recommendations that the community plan say, just to give me, I'm just speaking for one citizen, of where where y'all stand on those items. Obviously, the short-term rentals was in that plan. I knew that to me, that's a priority, that's one of the priority ones. The Special People's Park, I know is a priority. So, that's what I would love to see. Obviously, you do what you want, but, and you could read my other comments, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Brewer.
I'm Jeff Riddle from 134 March Road.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, other comments? Herb.
Yes. John Hurdle from Billmark Court. I'm just gonna say, the plan is already approved, but you really should fix the areas before any kind of final approval. Because the planning commission, I'm gonna be out, I was there, they looked like they didn't care, I'm sorry. They just didn't look like they cared. They weren't that interested in it. Some people were more interested, like the two of you who were involved the whole way through, but the newer people just didn't seem like they cared. But more importantly, you should fix the areas before you put the final nail and make it look good and everything like that. Because it actually looks like at least more like a draft than like a final plan. What else? I also want to give my support for the R1E. There's no short-term rentals. All my neighbors I talked to are very happy if you approve it. I know it's not finalized yet, but it would be very nice that you approve something like that and then make a whole, most of my community happy. Not all of them, stuff like that. So other than that, you really should fix the inconsistencies in the plan, make it look good before you do a final approval. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else signed up? Rick?
I didn't see you all.
Thank you. I can't really see what that you're amending your budget for this past year. That appears to be very late in the game. It looks from a distance as if it's an attempt to right the ship when something was wrong, because there's no explanation written on the agenda other than just a very, very brief comment about what it is and that it's all related to this past year's budget. These things are supposed to be done before the money is actually spent, and there doesn't appear to be a lot of time left. And the best way in the world, I mean, we may be trying to do that. We may be trying to rectify the situation of the things not being done properly in the past. And if that's the case, I at least like seeing them here rather than them being found as money being spent and never being authorized to be spent. But I would encourage you all to follow the state's rules in the future to approve money before they're spent rather than after they're spent, if that is what has happened here. And if it's not what has happened here, I apologize for my ignorance based on there being very little information available to the public on the matter. So I would encourage you to pick up the pace on what's available to the public. And if it's available now, and I don't know how to get there, I appreciate a little bit of feedback on how I can get to the documents that are related to each one of the agenda items before the meeting rather than learning about them after the blah, blah, blah. I mean, you all don't discuss things properly when you're discussing them. You just make a motion and a second motion, and then you vote. So it's very difficult for anybody to follow what's going on from the very limited information that's available on the piece of paper. So I would appreciate it if we can help get the information before the meeting and make things a little more transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rieger.
I got one more thing I've got to say. I'll make it real quick. You guys can probably fix it pretty quick. On the community,
You may come ahead.
on the community plan page, can you put the link there? It's not there. It's just so people know where to go, because that's where I looked. I couldn't find it until Jeff told me to go to the main page. So, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much.
My name is Sandy Hedrick, and I just want some clarification. Earlier in the community plan meeting, because our job is done, we passed that on to the planning commission and they approved it. They said they sent it to city commission. Earlier, the city manager said the city commission need not approve it. The planning commission has done its job. That's it. Well, I'm concerned, and I didn't get clear answers. There are, in the historical section, some inaccuracies. I do not want that to be changed. For all those years, it'll be in effect with incorrect information. So I know it will be edited before final print, but who do we go to with these things that need clarified?
I'm curious if you're allowed to review it before it got passed. Were you able to make those comments during that meeting?
No, there was not an option. Yes, we talked about it. Yes, they know about it. But who's responsible for making those changes? They heard the changes. The historical lady that came from the county, she heard the changes, but it's not been changed. So I'm wondering who is.
When the planning commission approved it, did they say these historical changes will be made, or did they just gloss over it?
They just said they'd approve it, and we talked about the changes, and so, okay, great, they acknowledged it needs to be accurate, yes, but exactly who's responsible here, I just don't know, and I would like to know simply because I volunteer at the Railroad Museum, and a part of the railroad history is not accurate, and I want to get it so there's a couple other things that we discussed, but who do you talk to? I know T.
So my question would be, if the consultant did it, then that should be part of their contract, just to do a good report and give you a final document. But will they give that to us and allow us to change things?
So, and no offense at all. I'm encouraging you all to, when during public input, not to address. Commissioner Jenkins has asked this to be pulled out. Probably a better time for these questions would be during that time that he is. And
Okay.
with all due respect, it keeps the meeting going, and I think you'll get your answers that you're looking for.
Thank you.
We'll cover. Thank you very much for that. Okay, any other input? Feedback is a gift, so we really appreciate it, and we will take those up and follow up on those. So, okay, thank you, and that'll close the public input for items on the agenda. Commissioners, let's next turn to unfinished business. The first item that we have is ordinance number 35426-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year budget for 2025-2026, budget for expenditures related to public notices. So we've seen these before. These are all on second reading. So let me get this one up. Got it here. Let's get a Let me read it, and then I'll ask for a motion and a second to get it up for discussion, and then I'll turn to city manager to provide some explanation. So this is ordinance number 354-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the city of Townsend's current fiscal year budget 2025 to 2026 budget for expenditures related to public notices. Whereas during the current fiscal year 2025-2026, the city of Townsend advertised for a city manager, and whereas the appropriation for public notices in the 2025-2026 budget was not sufficient to cover the extra cost of advertising and public noticing meetings regarding to the hiring of the city manager, and whereas this ordinance will be submitted to the Director of the Office of the State and Local Finance as required by state statute to show continued compliance with the requirements of Tennessee Code Annotated, Title 9, Chapter 21, Section 403, to maintain a balanced budget. Now therefore be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend hereby amends the current fiscal year budget 2025-2026 budget as follows. The budget line 41990-610. The original budget was $460. The amended budget is $2,260 for a difference of $1,800. And this comes from use of fund balance, $1,800. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect from the final passage and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void public welfare requirement. Passed and adopted by the Board of Commissioners of Townsend, Tennessee on this day of 2026 public welfare requirement. So let me see if I can get a motion and a second on this ordinance, and then I'll turn to city manager for some explanation.
Make a motion to accept ordinance number 354-26-1C.
Have a second.
Second.
Okay. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I also do want to point out these are on our website. However, we will be the first to admit that our website is not very user-friendly, which is why we are crafting a new website, but we are doing our best to get out there what we can. This is the second reading of this. This is for what it says. They had not budgeted the extra expense, which was an advertising my position. So funds were spent, funds have been spent. As I will say on each one of these, it is not good budgeting practice to spend past the budget. However, the state does require that when that happens, that you all address it. If you don't address it, we get a finding. So could spending past our budget result in a finding too? Yes, it could. It should not occur. It is not good budgeting. However, that is what we went through as a city, and I think there's some understanding there, and we're asking for a little bit of grace on this. But it is not improper for you all to approve this, but it also would not be improper for you all to get on to us for doing it and hold us accountable in extreme ways if it continues.
Discussion or questions from commissioners on this item? I think I understand this one pretty well, and I will say it was extraordinary times. We were doing the very best that we could with some short staff, but nevertheless, this situation occurred, and it's our responsibility now to recognize it. Further discussion? Okay. All in favor of ordinance number 354-26-1C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, the ordinance is approved with one opposed head. Let's move on to the next item. Next item on our agenda is ordinance number 355-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year budget 2025 to 2026 budget for expenditures related to an existing contract with SE Group. Now, I'll take the same approach. I'll read this. I'll ask for a motion and a second to get it up for discussion. And when we do that, I'll turn to City Manager for some explanation. This is ordinance number 355-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for expenditures related to an existing contract with SE Group. Whereas on May 21st, 2024, in a regularly called session of the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend, unanimously approved a contract with SE Group for consulting services for a city community master plan in the amount of $73,000. And whereas on June 13th, 2024, the city officially signed a contract with SE Group for consulting services. And whereas on January 21st, 2025, at a regularly called session, the Board of Commissioners passed a budget amendment for $62,000 to pay for payment to SE Group for the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. And whereas during the fiscal year 2024-2025, $59,000 was paid to SE Group, with the remaining $3,000 reverting back to the general fund. And whereas no appropriation was included in the city's fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for the expenditures related to the $14,000 still owed by contract to SE Group, and whereas in October 2025, a $9,000 payment was made for services rendered under the contract, leaving $5,000 still due for the fiscal year. And whereas there is a projected surplus in department line 41510, city recorder line 1110-1, city recorder salary of $9,666.17, and a projected surplus in department line 41650, personnel administration line 142, health insurance of $12,000, $131.07. And whereas this ordinance will be submitted to the Director of the Office of State and Local Finance as required by state statute to show continued compliance with the requirements of the Tennessee Code annotated Title IX, Chapter 21, Section 403 to maintain a balanced budget. Now, therefore, be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend hereby amends the current fiscal year budget 2025-2026 budget as follows. Department line 41510-110-1. The original budget was $143,520. The amended budget is $139,520, a difference of less $4,000. And department line 41650-142, in the original budget, $168,000. In the amended budget, it'll be $158,000, less difference of $10,000. And department line 41700-259, original budget $25,000. The amended budget will be $39,000, increase of $14,000. Use of fund balance, 0. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect on final passage, and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void for public welfare requirement. City Manager.
Yeah, so this is our contract with SE Group. So this expenditure was approved. It was approved by commission, I believe it's commission before you all, the one that sits, to enter into a contract for $73,000. This took a lot of research to see exactly what we owe them, get onto we'll talk about our financial management system, but we had to do a lot of digging to figure out what was paid, when it was paid, and how it was paid. Bottom line is that there was not, in this year's budget, there was not an expenditure put in to finish the $14,000 that we still owed SE Group from the contract that was approved. We paid $9,000. That's a payment I authorized in October. That was my first month here that I authorized in October with the debt contract. We are not asking for use of fund balance. I do want to address a couple things here. The city recorder line, the city recorder was not making $143,520. That was a combination of having a city recorder and a city manager, and because of the time in between where we were out without either, we have surplus there. The same thing in the health department. So instead of the health line, so instead of reaching into our fund balance, we're just asking you to move these from different departments. We're allowed with the state to move within departments between line items. We cannot move administratively out of departments. That takes commission approval. So we're asking for that 14,000 to come out of these two, which we're projecting the surplus in. This will fulfill our contract with SE Group.
Okay, thank you, City Manager, for that explanation. Commissioners, any questions for City Manager on that? Well, I can understand how the money flowed there, and it's good that we do have the surplus in the budget. I understand where that comes from, so that makes sense to me. And it does a little bit beg the question of our financial management software, which I know we're going to discuss later. Commissioners, last chance, any questions? Okay. All in favor of approving ordinance number 355? Oh, sorry, we didn't have the motion yet. Thank you very much. May I get a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 355-26-1C?
I make a motion to approve ordinance number 355-26-1C.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Thank you all. Take your team. All in favor of approving ordinance number 355-26-1C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. The motion passes with Jenkins and Hedrick opposed.
And my reasoning would be, since it's already been stated.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, that brings us down to the third item under unfinished business. This is ordinance number 356-26-1C. An ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year budget 2025-2026 for expenditures related to IT management services. I'll see if I can follow that same approach. I'll read it, then I'll ask for the motion in a second, then I'll turn to City Manager. Vice Mayor, keep an eye. Ordinance number 356-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for expenditures related to IT management services. Whereas the City of Townsend's use of and dependence on computer-related technology has grown to the point that full-time IT management services are needed. And whereas Allevia Technology is a company based in Blount County and services other small municipalities and businesses in the same area. And whereas the city has been using Allevia Technology on a month-to-month basis and is satisfied with the service. And whereas the city's current 2025-2026 budget does not include sufficient appropriation for IT management services for the full fiscal year. And whereas the city desires to continue its month-to-month arrangement with Allevia Technology for IT management services. And whereas this ordinance will be submitted to the Director of the Office of State and Local Finance as required by state statute to show continued compliance with the requirements of Tennessee Code Annotated Title IX, Chapter 21, Section 403 to maintain a balanced budget. Now, therefore, be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend hereby amends the current fiscal year 2025-2026 budget as follows. I'm so sorry. Department line 41990-232. The original budget is $21,000, and the amended budget will be $41,749.44. for a difference of $20,749.44. Use of the fund balance will be $20,749.44. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect when the final passage and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void and the public welfare requiring it. May I get a motion and a second to get this one up for discussion?
Make a motion to accept ordinance number 356-26-1C.
Second.
Okay. City Manager, your explanation on this.
Yeah, so this is our IT service, Olivia, local company, Beverly based. Came very highly recommended so far. Has been very pleased with their service. In that department, I'm very close to spending money that's not in there. So I don't think we could go another month. The use of fund balance that we're asking for covers what we have spent and what we think we will spend. We are still experiencing server trouble. We are still experiencing UPS trouble. We still need a lot to get to where we need to be, and a lot of help from them, which they're helping. One of the big things is the cyber security. We had a cyber attack this week. Some of y'all received some emails, some phishing emails. It was really nice to be able to lean on them and have them walk us through the process and to be able, their cyber team's looking at it, see what happens, see what other precautions we've had. The other thing is you all will start seeing some training. They will send out some training, there's some little videos that you watch that'll go through that'll help us realize what's out there, what they're doing, and what to look for. So this service has been invaluable, and especially as we lean more heavily on our technology, it's a must-have. I think everybody realizes that. So.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. One of the things that I've become aware of, we have a very nice facility here, big city hall. We host a lot of groups that come in here. We've got all kinds of things that would make you think that we have an HR department, that we have an IT department, that we have a department for this, that, or the other. But in fact, we don't. The two folks over here are frequently the department for everything. And so we need to contract out a number of our services. It's no surprise to me that IT services are something I've seen us suffer greatly over the last couple of years with some of our outdated software packages and things of that nature. And I'm real happy that we're getting that taken care of. On the other hand, it does come at a cost. And so I know we're trying in our budget to budget more money for IT so that we can be able to address our financial stuff, that we can be able to get documents disseminated out to our citizens and improve our website and things like that. So I'm comfortable with this expenditure, but welcome perspectives from other commissioners.
You can explain something to me. In here it says we've been using this company on a month-to-month basis.
Correct.
So we've been paying them by the month?
Correct.
Just
So,
out of curiosity, how much is it a month?
so the base is $1,500, and that's to use the different software packages they have.
Right?
But then any special need that we have, whether that's connected to the computer, there's been a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that they've been doing for us. There's been some hardware issues, like I said, with UPS and the server. Then also they updated all the wireless connections, but getting us untangled from GoDaddy has been a chore that we're still working through. So our emails are all mixed up, some .com, some .net. So getting all that out, and that they charge extra for that. So the main $1,500 is the software they have, that cybersecurity software. It's like we're not using Barracuda anymore, we're using their firewall. And then also some of the products, the big one I think I talked about is they keep all our passcodes for us now. So if something happens to somebody that works here, they come in, it's plug and play, we're up and running, we're not looking through a little book guessing what the passcode is or anything like that. So they keep all that documentation for us. And then anytime we have that $1,500, we have a small error, I say small, something where their help desk can remote in and help us with setting up the printer. Now for the first time, we have an easy way to scan documents and then be able to email. Before it was this hassle. they set that up for us. They were able to remote in and do that. So there's a lot of things that they're helping us with. That $1,500 covers, that doesn't cover everything. If they have to come out here for something, we'll get a little bit more charge.
Okay. I do appreciate the fact that when the fishing attack happened,
Yeah,
and you immediately had them on, because I was one of them that was attacked.
yeah, and that whole thing.
Agreed down the mountain as well.
I was gonna say, that whole thing, you saw, all of a sudden, it was like, what's going on? And it was really nice, and we gave them a call, and they're like, okay, here's how to walk through it.
That was a good example of how it's done.
I do just have one general question. If you were to hire somebody to do that same and have them in-house, how much would that be compared to this?
To find somebody full-time, which we wouldn't need somebody here full-time doing it, but, I mean, probably 60, 70 grand is what we're paying at the county. Our IT director is one of the highest directors, or is one of the highest directors paid at the county. IT people command a lot. I think we were hiring people in usually at the $50,000 to $60,000 range, depending on skill set. Yeah, well, and we
Then we
can,
have benefits on top of that. So it's not, it would be even more.
They are really quick to respond, because I was in here last week and my HOA was gonna have a meeting here on Saturday, and we didn't have a password for this room in here for us to be able to do connections with homeowners out of town. Well, Gayla was able to get a hold of them and have the password within like 10 minutes. So that was really nice to be able to get that stuff quickly.
guess Wi-Fi.
Guest Wi-Fi.
Okay. Any other questions? Good questions, good discussion. Last one from me, City Manager. Do they do audio?
No,
They're responsible.
they do not.
Because at bingo, that'll happen at
It
bingo.
does happen at bingo.
All right. Anything further? Okay. All in favor of ordinance number 356-26-1C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance passes. That brings us down to item number 4 on our agenda. This is ordinance 357-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year for expenditures related to purchasing a new financial management system. I'll take the same approach. I'll read it, and I'll ask for a motion and a second, and I'll turn to City Manager. Commissioners, this is ordinance number 357-26-1C, an ordinance to amend the City of Townsend's current fiscal year 2025-2026 budget for expenditures related to purchasing a new financial management system. Whereas the current financial management system used by the City of Townsend is QuickBooks Desktop, and whereas QuickBooks Desktop is not designed to be used for municipal finance management, and whereas the City of Townsend has had to modify the QuickBooks software to meet the state of Tennessee's minimum requirements for municipal financial management, whereas support is limited for the software and the specific support for municipalities is non-existent, whereas resulting in the inability to run reports that would enhance fiscal transparency, and whereas QuickBooks will not be supporting their desktop version at the end of May this year, requiring the city to transfer to QuickBooks Cloud version, and whereas Local Government Corporation, LGC, is a not-for-profit company that develops financial management software specifically for municipalities in the state of Tennessee, and whereas LGC's financial management software was developed in conjunction with the State Comptroller's Office, and whereas LGC's software will be beneficial to the City of Townsend as a robust financial management system that includes a purchasing module that will allow for more fiscal transparency, and whereas there is no appropriation in the city's 2025-2026 budget for the purchase of a new financial management system, and whereas the first year setup and training cost for the LGC software is $25,651.40 and an annual support and user fee of $7,170 each following year. And whereas this ordinance will be submitted to the Director of the Office of State and Local Finance as required by state statute to show continued compliance with the requirements of Tennessee Code annotated Title IX, Chapter 21, Section 403, to maintain a balanced budget. Now therefore be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend hereby amends the current fiscal year 2025-2026 budget as follows. Department line 41990-232. The original budget is $21,000. The amended budget is $46,651.40 for a difference of $25,651.40. This requires the use of fund balance of $25,651.40. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect from final passage and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void of public welfare requirement. Commissioners, may I get a motion and a second to get this one up for discussion?
Make a motion to accept ordinance number 357-26-1C.
Second.
Okay. City Manager, may I turn to you on this one?
So, this money has not been spent. We have not entered into a contract with anybody on this one. And we talked about this last month, and I've been pretty open about our troubles with QuickBooks. It gets the job done. We squeak by with it, but we've outgrown it. They are going to stop the desktop. We have to go to the online. In May, they're also, more importantly, once they stop the desktop, we'll be able to use the desktop. It won't be supported. What they are stopping is payroll. So we'll have to scramble with whoever we choose, and I'll say why I'm saying that here in a second. Get everything up and going by the end of May. The system, and y'all will be seeing, I told you we've got the draft back from the audit. One of the findings is things that took place with the former city manager, and they're looking for y'all to have more financial control in a system, a financial management system that's geared for local municipalities. We'll be able to provide you all with more reporting, with more reports, easier to generate, be more transparent, and so that's one of the things that we're looking for. And it just makes it easier for us to track things. It makes it's a more robust financial management system that's tailored for municipalities. One thing I did ask was for me to check and see if we can single source this. I never got a firm answer back, so what I'm going to ask is that it's the 8th whereas where it says LGC software would be beneficial to the city of Townsend. Put or compatible. If you'll notice, this ordinance doesn't call to enter into a contract with LGC. It uses them as an example. So we are going to advertise in the paper that we are looking for a financial management system. We'll probably keep it in there about a week. I don't really expect any response, or because they are one of the few that are municipalities. Until you get into somebody like Highland Munis, which is what the county uses, which is a 6-figure. Much more robust software. So they're kind of the only one in town, but some people say, well, there are other financial management systems out there. So I just feel like it's good for everybody if we have that where we did advertise.
City Manager, any questions from the commissioners?
I have some questions, just because I need to understand. The original budget was $21,000. Did we spend that $21,000? Are we holding it? We're going to add this other money to it and then spend it with?
So actually, that's in our IT line.
Okay.
So actually, that money, which is now after last vote, is 46. So I kind of had to do these. I couldn't assume you were going to pass everything. So both the Olivia money and the software money will come out of that IT line.
Okay.
So that 21,000, yeah, it's gone, but as of now, it's what, 40, whatever we have for. But that's going to be ate up by Olivia and putting back some of those funds. This is the cost for this when it goes into the same. So I can see where And I hadn't put 21 because it'd be presumptuous to assume that it passed.
Okay.
Wait, real quick question, how much was QuickBooks a year?
I got 2,000 and the charges payroll. But if you have issues, I guess.
Sorry.
Good question. Question, what are we paying now? Sounds like part of the issue is that QuickBooks was never really fit for purpose, and their support for the desktop version that we're using is not continuing after May. So we could continue with QuickBooks, but again, that gets you back to the problem that it's not sort of fit for purpose to be able to provide the report generation that we need for our oversight. And I would guess these reports could be available to our citizens as well.
It makes it much more transparent. So everything is done in the state of Tennessee and County by chart of accounts. And actually, LGC helped develop the chart of accounts they developed is what the state uses. During our audit, our auditors have to take our accounts, crosswalk them, and the state's okay with that because they realize the financial burden that a financial management system puts on the city. We can afford a true financial management system now. It's not, they know that it's going to purchase you to do it. So we can go to POs, we can go to better track. It puts us in a different ballpark as far as accountability goes.
Wait, I think that's Commissioner Jenkins off. Perfect.
Go ahead.
Yep. That was the only question I had after that.
The other thing I was going to ask is, it says the first year setup and training is $25,000 and an annual support and user fee of $7,000 and change each following year. If we have a need for a whole lot of support, do they charge us more than that $7,000?
I'm not 100% sure on that, but the setup, I can look and find that out once we get I would say no, because that's what that big lump is first, is up and getting you going. And in my past dealings with the other financial management systems, that's usually a no. But that's what that 7,000 includes, because I mean, honestly, that's a licensing fee, and that's,
Yeah. I mean, that's only $600 a month.
yeah, it's a
That's the
bar-
reason, to me,
Yeah.
it seems,
They're a nonprofit, so, but I can, we'll definitely, before we enter into a contract negotiation with them, work all that out. But my understanding from what the documents they sent me, this is what we would need in year over year. So this first year budget built into the budget that y'all have coming up. If we ran into any difficulties, also we come back to y'all before we truck ahead with it.
will this make any of our financial information more secure?
Yes. Yes. One thing about this, and it's good and bad, is this is not a cloud-based service. We will have to back this up, which we have the capability to do. That's the backups are part of this price. We're not as redundant on the backup when it's not cloud-based, but also we are less vulnerable to being hacked, which goes back to the firewall that we have from Olivia, which would protect us from anybody trying to get into our software.
Okay, thank you.
Couple of questions. We were talking about backups. So we've got a safety pin on the box somewhere, that we can take the flash drive or whatever that has all this stuff in.
So what it is, they put it on multiple computers. So we have a server, and then it would be, so it would still be here, just like any other financial, like back in the old days when you had your books. Yeah.
So you don't physically take a copy somewhere off-site in case it burns to the ground because your server is physically in the building?
Yeah, I can ask that question, but I don't know if that's to be able to answer it. I would say that's possible. Yeah.
That might be good, just,
Yeah.
I know we've got sprinklers and stuff, but just in case, or a tornado or something happens. And another general question on the SC grade ordinance, you talked about the surpluses of 9,666 and 12,131. That was 21,797, but we're only using 14,000 of it. Are we holding that 7,800 in case we need it, or can we use it on one of these other ones?
I'm holding that so I don't have to come back to you all and say, oh, hey, we miscounted. We looked at it where we could, but again, I'm dealing with QuickBooks. We've got a lot of things that are coming in, so I felt, and we'll see with the budget, I always have a little bit of pack, because I don't want to tell you I was wrong and have to come back. Not saying that'll never happen, but we try our best not to, but I don't want to get it right at the bottom dollar, so. And it's a wash, that'll roll back into fund balance. Don't have any plans on spending that. So.
Good questions, Commissioners. Any more? Okay, I've heard City Manager make a suggestion that we might want to amend this ordinance 357-26-1C to include some additional text on the 8th whereas. 8. And so I think we need to consider doing that before we vote on the motion. And so this text, I think, City Manager, let me see if I've got it right. Whereas LGCs or comparable software will be beneficial to the City of Townsend as a robust financial management system that includes a purchasing module that will allow for fiscal transparency. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So,
And then depending on how things come back, if there's a lower bidder or we decide to go a little bit higher.
Yeah, we don't have to go with the lowest bidder, we go with who. But,
If there's one that's,
yeah, if there's one out there we don't know about, and they're comparable to state and all that sort of stuff, then definitely, that's why we put.
we can amend it again, if needed to add
Yeah,
a little bit
so-
more.
Yeah, or we should be good.
okay. So I think the next step, and this is where parliamentarian would help us, the next step would be to modify this ordinance and then agree on that and then go back and vote on the motion to accept the ordinance. So can I get a first and a second to modify the 8th whereas LGCs to read, whereas LGCs or comparable software will be beneficial to the City of Townsend as a robust financial management system that includes a purchasing module that will allow for more fiscal transparency. I'll make that as a motion, and then can someone second that motion?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of amending ordinance number 357-26-1C, as we've just done, to say, whereas LGC's software will be, or LGC's or comparable software will be beneficial to the City of Townsend as a robust financial management system that includes a purchasing module that will allow for more fiscal transparency. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that amends the ordinance. Now we'll go back and we have a motion and a second to vote on ordinance number 357-26-1C as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ordinance number 357-26-1C as amended is approved. All right, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, I need to call on you to do some reading.
Okay.
Let's turn our attention next to the new business, First item on our agenda.
Yep. First item is now,
Oh, that's right. Thank you, Commissioner Hedrick. First item is now the city manager's report and to discuss about the maintenance. City manager, I'll turn it over to you. We've got a copy of your report. Is there anything you'd like to highlight for us? And then I'll turn to Commissioner Jenkins. He can ask us questions.
No, the Commissioner Jenkins had a question concerning.
About 6 months ago, we passed an ordinance that required dumpsters at eating establishments to be secured from wildlife, and been very slow to occur. And in fact, on my way to church Sunday, I drove past 2 dumpsters, and both of them were unlocked and had the lids open. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. And now I drove down some places today, and there are some that now have chains, carabiners, locks, whatever, but not all. So my question is, when will we finish getting everybody, or are we finding people now for not being compliant?
Yeah, we're not finding them as of yet. We've got an inventory on that, and also I've told some other people, we have one code enforcement officer that is part-time. We've been asking a lot of him lately, as the mayor mentioned, the department's 2 of us, really, I'd say 2.5, because trying to get some of this done, I've been asking Ken to take on some administrative duties. But in saying that, he has audited them, and I believe this week he's going to do it after hours to see, because one of the points was, we just took stuff out, so he wants to make sure and see when they are locked. But it's something we are working towards and we're working on. I did put in there the amount people had and the ones that didn't have anything and that did have anything. So it's something we're working on. I hear what y'all are saying, that you want it sped up. We will move that more to the front burner.
Let me ask you a question. Is a dumpster with a 2x4 across the lid securing the unit from wild animals?
Yeah, we have to go case by case with that.
With the new state law about bear protection, you got to work with TWRA. It's just not anywhere. But we're going to have pressure on us to not conform, but be compatible with that state law, especially to benefit the bears in this area, because we have a lot of them, as everybody knows. The park's gone from 1,600 last year to 1,900 this year. And we all know they don't stay in the park. They come over to my house, they come over to your house. So I really think this is pretty darn important. It's been mighty slow progress.
And that, I'll take responsibility for that, just in triaging things and trying to move forward, and then before we know bear season is on. So we're speeding up on that, but I'll take the responsibility.
Commissioner Jenkins, I'm going to support your comments on that. I do think it's important, especially, now in the current time. Anytime we have a new regulation that comes on the books, I know we do our best to try to educate as well. So I would encourage you to see if there's other ways that we might put something out on our social media or something, just reminding folks that there is this requirement. Generally, I think people, responsible business owners will be compliant if they're reminded or aware, but of course you do need to follow up and take enforcement action as well, part of that. But I think the education piece is similarly important.
So we have one suggestion. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh.
Sorry. Is there any chance that we could benefit by getting Bear Rescue Group to help us in this? They've got a vested interest in the bear population, and they've got knowledge that maybe would help.
In enforcement, I don't know.
Education.
Education, yes.
And obviously some of these places need education.
Yeah.
When you put a 2x4 on top of a dumpster, they need education.
Education or possible alternatives
Yeah.
that would work.
I'm not asking for enforcement, they're not
No,
authorized.
I just want to make sure, yeah, before I answer, yeah, I think for educational purposes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Jenkins, you're good on that item?
I'm good on that one.
Okay. Let's go down to the next item, and that would be the community plan report. Commissioner Jenkins, do you have a question on that?
Well, the situation with the community plan to me seems very chaotic, and I'm not trying to offend you. They've generated a document that they didn't take the previous one and say, oh, we need to make these changes. They generated an all-new version, which implies that the old version doesn't matter anymore, which seems ridiculous. The one that was passed by the planning commission is full of errors, questions, things that were generated that I don't think came as a result of the surveys where we down at the Heritage Center. For instance, they asked a question about affordable housing. Well, it has morphed into needing employee housing. And we didn't talk about employee housing at that survey. So it seems to me that there's been a lot of stuff done that nobody's got a real chance to evaluate and make comments about. And for the planning commission to call it passed, to me, was a ridiculous thing. So I'm with Sandy, where she's found mistakes that need to be fixed. I think there's other things that need to be fixed in it as well.
And also, on that line, I mean, as far as that you all looking at, I mean, I've made it clear, I think we need to be careful. There's a difference in fixing factual stuff, and then I think there's some stuff in there that we may look at and say, that's not us, we're not going to do that. But I think that's you all, that's planning commission to go through that part. It's not on tonight's agenda because we've got 7 ordinances plus something else. I figured it was going to generate a lot of discussion. I want to give it time when you could have discussion, not already be an hour into a meeting, which is going to be an hour and a half when we get to the end. So it will be coming to you all. It has been adopted, good, bad, or indifferent by the planning committee. I agree, there's factual things that need to be fixed, but that's you all. And that probably, in my opinion, the best place to do that is in planning, but that's not my decision. That's going to be, that's you all.
Yeah, thanks, City Manager. So, Commissioner Jenkins, I appreciate you talking about the community plan. I think I might have missed 1 or 2 meetings over the last several months or years, but I think I've been there all along. In terms of the format, it very much follows the current or the previous document in terms of its format. So the data chapters are at the beginning. There's one additional section that I particularly like. It talks about our history and cultural heritage. And we've had quite a lot of input on that. We're certainly fortunate to have such a rich cultural heritage, and I agree that it needs its own section to be called out. But I think there's a lot of coherence. If you put those 2 versions beside them, I've got them right here.
Me too.
The format is identical. So it follows the same format. It's coherent between the versions. The other thing I'll observe is the fact that there's a lot of good ideas in the last plan that were carried over into this plan. So I'm not sure that, we've thrown out anything that was important to our citizens. Importantly, we did a tremendous amount of work to get input from our residents, from our Tuckaleechee Cove community. We had thousands of surveys that went out. We had dozens of community plan advisory meetings where folks could come in and provide feedback on that. And as a result, Something else that's new in the community plan is a section on vision. So what was missing, in my estimation, in our previous plan, what is the peaceful side of the Smokies? That's the thing that our residents want. That's the thing that our visitors want. That's the thing that our businesses want. They build whole businesses around this concept of it's different on this side of the mountain. So now we know what the peaceful side of the Smokies is all about, what the vision is. And that vision came directly from our residents. It came directly from those sticky notes, hundreds of them that were put on things at the Heritage Center. All that feedback was collated. There's a lot of feedback that might not have made it into the plan, but I can tell you there's stuff on employee housing that came up there. We've had discussions in the CPAC meetings about employee housing. That's something that our businesses are confronted with. And so to find that there's something in there about that, I think is a reflection of the fact that we probably had a pretty good process.
Mayor, if I could, and I don't mean to interrupt both y'all, I just want to keep us on the agenda. My report's on the agenda. Y'all asked about a few things, but I want to make sure we don't get into.
We'll come
that way.
back.
Y'all can be more prepared. I will next month put it on there. Y'all can have all the discussion that you want to have on it. We're getting off of the agenda.
There's one question that needs to be answered. Sandy asked a question about, she's already identified some changes. Who is she supposed to give those to? Just bring them next month? That's good enough?
Recommendation
Yeah.
would be to give it to me,
Okay.
and I'll get it to you all and get it to planning.
Okay.
And so I would think I would think it should be addressed in planning, but again,
Yes.
that's not my decision. But I will forward that on.
City manager, if I can weigh in on this, just so that we've got crystal clarity around this point. City manager will take the feedback. If we've got typos, if we've got errors, if there's something, he can take that feedback and provide it to planning commission. This document is owned by the Tennessee Code annotated by the planning commission. They have the primary responsibility for this. And so if there's typos in there, if there's a run-on sentence that we need to identify, they'll be the ones that can take that on board. They have already adopted the plan, but that doesn't mean that it's in its final printed form. We need to match up the Parks and Rec master plan. One of the things that we contracted for and that we did receive is a Parks and Recreation master plan that ought to go as an appendix in that community plan. And so when it comes back, we'll look at all those pieces, and I think that's how we'll proceed in terms of the feedback.
After we comes to city commission next month, can we have a workshop with all the groups and try to hash this out? Because it's not going to be hashed out next month.
Yeah, well, my advice would be, if y'all want to look at it and talk about it, we can set something up earlier if you want to talk about it before. It has, like I said, good, bad, or different, it has been approved by planning. So you all could recommend to them changes in it. But again, I don't, try not to get into this deep conversation which we need to have, but, you know, I've got some other ordinances that I really need y'all's attention on, and this I promise I will bring up and give ample time to. Yeah.
And I don't know if I've gotten any of the comments that you've received so far.
I'll
Can
make
send
sure
those out.
all the ones I received are from Jeff. So, yeah, that I received in writing. Yeah, I do. Sam, I need to get hers, and then I will pass those on.
Well, and maybe as a segue into our new business on short-term rentals, I'll just say that one good activity that we had a suggestion by a citizen is to prioritize these recommendations. What are the things that we need to work on now? There's more than 50 recommendations in that plan. It's a 10-year plan, so it's got a long horizon on it. But I think one of the things that will be important for the Planning Commission to do, and probably equally as important for the Planning Commission, is to hear from our City Commission what are the most important things, what are the highest priority items that we need to tackle. And so with that, let's wrap up this item and move on to our first item of business in the, under new business. And this is ordinance number 358-26-1C, an ordinance of Townsend, Tennessee adopting an annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027. And let's see, I'll read this ordinance, or maybe I'll ask the Vice Mayor to read this ordinance, then we'll ask for a motion and a second to get it up for discussion, and we'll turn to the city manager after we do that, and we'll get some additional explanation. So, Vice Mayor, if you could assist me on reading this one out.
Okay, I'd be happy to. All right, this is ordinance number 358-26-1C, an ordinance of the City of Townsend, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027. Whereas Tennessee Code Annotated 9-1-116 requires that all funds of the state of Tennessee and all its political subdivisions shall first be appropriated before being appropriated, and expended that only funds that are available shall be appropriated. And whereas the municipal budget law of 1982 requires that the governing body of each municipality adopt and operate under an annual budget ordinance presenting a financial plan with at least the information required by the state statute, that no municipality may expend any monies regardless of the source except in accordance with the budget ordinance, and that the governing body shall not make any appropriation in excess of estimated available funds. And whereas the Townsend Board of Commissioners has published the annual operating budget and budgetary comparisons of the proposed budget with the prior year actual and the current year estimated in a newspaper of general circulation not less than 10 days prior to the meeting, where the board will consider final passage of the budget. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Commissioners of the City of Townsend, Tennessee as follows. Section 1, that the governing body projects anticipated revenues from all sources and appropriates planned expenditures for each department, board, office, or other agency of the municipality, herein presented together with the actual annual receipts and expenditures of the last preceding fiscal year and the estimated annual expenditures for the current fiscal year, and from those revenues and unexpected and unencumbered funds as follows for the fiscal year 2027, and including the projected ending balances for the budget year, the actual ending balances for the most recent ended fiscal year, and the estimated ending balances for the fiscal years. And then, do I need to go through the chart as well?
I might suggest you read it.
All right, okay, general fund, under revenues, first line, local taxes, fiscal year 2025 actual, $1,116,974. FY 2026 estimated, $1,190,867. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,217,351. Second line, licenses and permits, FY 2025 actual, $67,753. FY 2026 estimated, $34,095. FY 2027 budgeted, $31,915. Third line, intergovernmental, FY 2025 actual, $173,289. FY 2026 estimated, $182,737. FY 2027 budgeted, $252,237. Miscellaneous revenues, $146,201 for FY 2025 actual. FY 2026 estimated, $130,418. FY 2027 budgeted, $135,809. Total revenues for FY 2025 actual, $1,504,217. FY 2026 estimated, $1,538,117. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,634,312. And then drop down to appropriations, General Government, FY 2025 actual, $642,844. FY 2026 estimated, $765,880. FY 2027 budgeted, $800,030. Public Safety, FY 2025 actual, $552,813. FY 2026 estimated, $539,379. FY 2027 budgeted, $568,420. Public Works, FY 2025 actual, $194,565. FY 2026 estimated, $148,001. FY 2027 budgeted, $138,289. Parks and Recreation, FY 2025 actual, $32,202. FY 2026 estimated, $23,330. FY 2027 budgeted, $10,368. Tourism Development, there is nothing under FY 2025 or 2026. FY 2027 budgeted, $75,000. Debt Service, FY 2025 actual, $41,914. FY 2026 estimated, $41,141. FY 2027 budgeted, $41,914. Total appropriations for FY 2025 actual, $1,464,337. FY 2026 estimated, total appropriation, $1,517,731. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,634,021. Change in fund balance for FY 2025 actual, $39,880. FY 2026 estimate, $20,386. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,291. Beginning fund balance for FY 2025 actual was $788.02. FY 2026 estimated, $827,882. FY 2027 budgeted, $848,268. Ending fund balance, FY 2025 actual, $827,882. FY 2026 estimated, ending fund balance, $848,268. FY 2027 budgeted, $849,559. Drug fund revenues, FY 2025 actual, $1,750. FY 2026 estimate, $1,000. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,000. Total revenues for FY 2025 actual, $1,750. FY 2026 estimated total revenue, $1,000. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,000. Appropriations, drug expenditures, FY 2025 actual, $2,217. FY 2026 estimated, $1,000. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,500. Total appropriations for FY 2025 actual, $2,217. FY 2026 estimate, $1,000. FY 2027 budgeted, $1,500. Change in fund balance for FY 2025 actual was $467. FY 2026 estimate was showing nothing. FY 2027 budgeted, $500. Beginning fund balance for FY 2025 actual is $4,761. FY 2026 estimated $4,294. FY 2027 budgeted $4,294. Ending fund balance actual FY 2025 $4,294. FY 2026 estimated $4,294. FY 2027 budgeted $3,794. State Street Aid Fund, revenues. FY 2025 actual. Intergovernmental revenue, $19,241. FY 2026 estimated, $19,487. FY 2027 budgeted, $19,885. Total revenues, FY 2025 actual was $19,241. FY 2026 estimated was $19,487. FY 2027 budgeted is $19,885. Appropriations, street maintenance and repairs. FY 2025, $1,711. FY 2026, $1,550. FY 2027 budgeted shows nothing. Total appropriations, FY 2025 actual, $1,711. FY 2026 estimated, $1,550. FY 2027 budgeted shows nothing. Change in fund balance, FY 2025, $17,530. FY 2026 estimated, $17,937. FY 2027 budgeted, $19,885. Beginning fund balance, $196,452 for FY 2025. FY 2026 estimated, $213,982. FY 2027 budgeted, $231,920. Ending fund balance for FY 2025 actual, $213,982. FY 2026 estimated, $231,920. FY 2027 budgeted, $251,806. Section 2. At the end of the fiscal year 2026, the governing body estimates fund balances or deficits as follows. General fund, $848,268. Drug fund, $4,294. State street aid, $231,920.
I'll spell you.
My eyes are starting to cross.
Section 3, that the governing body herein certifies that the condition of its sinking funds, if applicable, are compliant pursuant to its bond covenants and recognizes the municipality as outstanding, bonded, and other indebtedness as follows. Original issuance amount, $236,340. Authorized and unissued, nothing. Total principal outstanding as of 6/30/26, $84,000. FY 2027 budgeted annual debt service, the principal would be $40,000. Interest, $1,914. Total, $41,914. On the bottom line, original issuance amount, $236,340. Authorized and unissued, nothing. Total principal outstanding as of June 30th, 2026, $84,000. FY 2027 budgeted annual debt service principal, $40,000. Interest, $1,914, for a total of $41,914. Section 4, during the coming fiscal year, the governing body has planned capital projects and proposed funding as follows. There's, three columns here. The first one is proposed capital projects. The second column is proposed amount financed by appropriations. And the third column has three subcolumns: proposed amount financed by grants, proposed amount financed by debt, total proposed capital projects. As for the general fund, there's a police car of $25,039. That is a proposed amount financed by appropriations, and that is carried over under the column total proposed capital projects. The next line, public works projects, proposed amount financed by appropriations $5,000, and that's carried over under total proposed capital projects of $5,000, for a total of proposed amount financed by appropriations of $30,039, and a total proposed capital projects $30,039. Section 5, no appropriation listed above may be exceeded without an amendment of the budget ordinance as required by the Municipal Budget Law 1982, Tennessee Code annotated Section 656-208. In addition, no appropriation may be made in excess of available funds except to provide for an actual emergency threatening the health, property, or lives of the inhabitants of the municipality, and declared by 2/3 vote of at least a quorum of the governing body in accord with Tennessee Code annotated Section 656-205. Section 6 of the ordinance. A detailed financial plan will be attached to this budget and become part of the budget ordinance. Section 7. This annual operating and capital budget ordinance and supporting documents shall be submitted to the comptroller of the Treasury or comptroller's designee for approval pursuant to Title IX, Chapter 21, Tennessee Code annotated within 15 days of its adoption. If the comptroller, treasury, or the comptroller's designee determines that the budget does not comply with the statutes, the governing body shall adjust its estimates or make additional tax levies sufficient to comply with the statutes or as directed by the comptroller of the treasury or comptroller's designee. Section 8, all unencumbered balances of appropriations remaining at the end of the fiscal year lapse and revert to the respective fund balances. Section 9, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with any provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 10, there is hereby levied a property tax of 0, I'll say that again, 0 per $100 of assessed value on all real and personal property. Section 11, this ordinance shall take effect July 1st, 2026, the public welfare requirement. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
And I'll just note that there is a budget detailed financial plan that has been posted on our website.
Can we take a little bit of a break? I need about 5 minutes.
We'll be adjourned for 5 minutes. Okay, Commissioners, we will continue with item number 1 under new business. This is ordinance number 358-26-1C that we're discussing, an ordinance of Townsend, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026 and ending June 30th, 2027. I am aware that we have posted on our website the actual detailed financial plan that accompanies the ordinance. I think that meets our obligation. So let me see if I can get a motion and a second to get this one up for discussion.
I make a motion to accept ordinance number 358-26-1C.
I have a second.
Second.
City Manager, can you lead us through this?
Yeah, so what you have in front of you is the budget as discussed from the workshop with some changes. So let me go through the changes. The biggest change, and I'll go through line by line, but was that we were hit with almost $20,000 increase from PCRS. So I think we had originally $14,000 surplus. That ate that up. I went in and then I dropped to make that up. So there was no increase in revenue. Again, being conservative, I think we're going to beat revenue, but I'd rather come back and say, hey, guess what, we beat revenue instead of, hey, guess what, we didn't make it. So let me walk you all through. The first change is going to be on the first page there under miscellaneous revenue. And it's interest income. Actually, Commissioner Jenkins found this during the workshop. So that was $2,412 of revenue that we were able to account for. On the second page, under Department 41510, City Recorder salaries, the training and education, I dropped it from $5,000 to $4,000. Then the increase that you'll see is 41650-131-143, personnel retirement. That's the almost $20,000 increase that we saw from the state. Then also we saw an increase from East Tennessee Development of roughly $600, and that's 41700-257. So we have a decrease in City Hall maintenance repair of $1,000. That's 41810-249-250. sorry, 418-810-250, and then 418-10319. Those two, I dropped $1,000 each. On the next page, under Public Works, 4,300, capital outlay, equipment purchase, drop that to 4,500, decrease of $500. Child Safety Services down in Parks and Recreation, Commissioner Martin asked us to add in 1,000, so 1,000 was added back into that. Then the advertising, social media under Tourism Development Independence Day, moved 1,000 out of the advertising, social media, and put 1,000 in for the Independence Day celebration, taking it from 4,000 to 5,000, taking advertising, social media from 11,000 to 10,000. And that's how we came back up with a balanced budget. I think we're a couple thousand to the good.
Okay, thank you, City Manager. Commissioners, we've been over some of this in our workshop. Any questions for City Manager on the detailed financial plan? Commissioner Eagle-Eye Jenkins, anything to strike?
Thanks for the compliment.
We do have a change that needs to be made. So under the street aid fund, what was that? Section 4 for Public Works. There's one thing that I dropped, that was for a salt, which should be 4,500. Our salt spreader gave up to go this winter, so we put 5,000 in there. It should be 4,500, but that needs to change in the capital. So the capital for the street fund will be 4,500, not 5,000.
City Manager, let me make sure I've got this correct. On the third page, under Section 4, General Fund, Public Works, 5,000 goes to 4,500.
Correct.
Got it. And that will carry over under total proposed capital projects, 45.
That's correct.
And that will affect the total down here on the bottom,
500 more.
500 more, so it'll be 30,539. All right, we need to make that amendment to the ordinance. Commissioners, any other questions? I'm going to keep this moving here if we can. We've got a motion and a second, but we need to amend the ordinance. So I'm going to make a motion that in Section 4, Public Works, under proposed amount financed by appropriations, we change 5,000 to 4,500. And under total proposed capital projects, that 5,000 goes to 4,500. And under the total or proposed amount financed by appropriation would be 30,539. And under total proposed capital projects, 539. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ordinance number 358-26-1C is amended. Now, we'll go back to the question. Got a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 358-26-1C as amended. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, ordinance number 358-26-1C is approved with Jenkins opposed. Okay, Commissioners, let's go to number 2 on our new business. This is ordinance number 359-26-1C, an ordinance for the City of Townsend defining tourist residences as short-term rental units and providing regulatory framework for a permitting process regarding the operation of short-term rental units. Okay. We'll follow the same approach. I'll read it, then I'll ask for a motion and a second to get it up for discussion, and then we'll go to City Manager. This is ordinance number 359-26-1C, an ordinance of the City of Townsend defining tourist residences as short-term rental units and providing regulatory framework for a permitting process regarding the operation of short-term rental units. Whereas in 2017, the City of Townsend defined residential short-term rentals as tourist residences in accordance with 291-17-IP, and whereas the City of Townsend, along with cities across the state of Tennessee, has experienced growth in the popularity of short-term rentals of residential units or dwellings, and whereas City of Townsend zoning ordinance, section 8-602, requires a permit for operating a tourist residence, and whereas the city desires to require all tourist residents to have valid permit for operation, and whereas the city has no mechanism for determining whether properties offered to the public as tourist residences offer appropriate safety features such as smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors, and other life safety features. And whereas the city does not have a regulatory framework for issuing permits for tourist residences, and whereas in the absence of a regulatory framework, the city cannot effectively monitor short-term rentals, ensure public safety, or assess and collect applicable taxes, and whereas the city believes it is imperative to adopt such ordinance providing a regulatory framework for a permitting process that balances the protection of neighborhoods with the interests of individuals who wish to rent their property on a short-term basis. And whereas the city has determined that the regulation of tourist residences is necessary to protect health, safety, and welfare of the public and to promote the public interest by regulation methods of operation. And whereas in 2018, the state of Tennessee passed the Short-Term Rental Act, Tennessee Code Annotated 13-7-601, providing a definition for short-term rentals. Whereas the city has determined that it should adopt the definition of the state of Tennessee for short-term rental units to ensure consistency and compliance with state code. And whereas the city further finds that unregulated short-term rental activity may result in adverse secondary effects, including noise disturbances, parking congestion, solid waste impacts, and increased demand on public safety services such as fire and police. And whereas the provisions of this ordinance are intended to fully comply with the Short-Term Rental Unit Act, codified in Tennessee Code Annotated 13-7-601, now therefore be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend as follows. A definition. The City of Townsend zoning ordinance shall be amended as follows. Section 8-203, item number 37G and 80 shall be changed to read short-term rental unit, a residential dwelling that is rented wholly or partially for a fee for a period of less than 30 days continuous, 30 in parentheses, and does not include a hotel as defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 68-14-302, or a bed and breakfast establishment or a bed and breakfast homestay, as those terms are defined in Tennessee Code Annotated 68-14-502. Section 8-602 shall be changed to read short-term rental unit dash. Single-family dwellings may be used as short-term rental units by obtaining an annual short-term rental unit permit from the city and complying with all applicable provisions of this ordinance. Section B, permitting requirements. Permit and business license required. Number 1. All persons eligible to operate a short-term rental unit within the city of Townsend, regardless of the property's zoning district, must obtain a short-term rental unit permit pursuant to this section and a city of Townsend business license. The city reserves the right to inspect the premises upon submission of the permit application and at reasonable times thereafter, including periodic or complaint-based inspections to verify compliance with all applicable life safety operational requirements. Operators must have a valid permit before advertising their short-term rental units for use, accepting reservations, or allowing occupancy for short-term rental use. Number 2, previously operated short-term rental units. Only those property owners who were lawfully operating a short-term rental unit prior to the effective date of this ordinance shall be eligible to continue operations, provided that such owner submits a completed permit application within 60 days of the effective date of this ordinance. Evidence of lawful operation may include listing history, rental activity, or other documentation demonstrating compliance with applicable law. Evidence of tax remittance may be considered but shall not be the sole determining factor. Section C, application requirements. All qualifying property owners seek to operate a short-term rental unit shall submit a completed application to the city of Townsend. An application is not considered complete until all required information is received. At a minimum, the application shall include 1, written acknowledgement that the applicant has read and agrees to comply with all applicable regulations, including business license requirements, occupancy, privilege tax requirements, and all applicable City of Townsend, Blount County government, and State of Tennessee regulations and requirements, laws, and ordinances. An affidavit of life safety compliance certifying the presence and operability of the following equipment, inspections, and plans. Bulleted list. Smoke alarms, meeting UL 217 standards inside each sleeping room, outside sleeping areas, and on each level of the dwelling, including basements. Carbon monoxide detectors, meeting UL 2034 within 15 feet of all bedrooms. At least one operational fire extinguisher per floor in a readily accessible location. Exit paths shall be maintained in proper working order and shall be free from any obstructions. Floor evacuation plans shall be located on each level, including basements, that depict the locations of sleeping areas and exit routes. Evacuation plans need not have "you are here." Evacuation plans need to have "you are here" marked and guidance on how to exit the unit from the spot clearly marking the exits. Chimney and fireboxes must be professionally cleaned and inspected annually by a certified chimney cleaning professional. If a chimney or firebox is no longer in service, functional, or if an owner does not allow the use of the chimney or firebox, then it must be completely blocked off from visitor access. The city may require verification of life safety compliance through inspection or submission of third-party certification when reasonably necessary to protect public safety. Number 3, confirmation that the application is submitted by the property owner or an authorized individual acting on behalf of a business entity or trust, including proof of good standing with the Tennessee Secretary of State when applicable. Number 4, designation of a local contact person is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, capable of responding in person within 45 minutes of notice of a complaint and authorized to take corrective action. Number 5, contact information for the owner and, when applicable, the responsible representative for any business or trust. Number 6, a site plan and floor plan showing dwelling size, room use, number and size of beds, accessory structures, off-street parking spaces, and maximum number of overnight vehicles. Maximum occupancy shall not exceed 2 beds per bedroom, with bunk beds accounting for 1 bed. Total maximum occupancy for any short-term rental unit being 12 persons. Units exceeding 12 occupants shall be considered commercial lodging and will not be considered as a short-term rental unit. Off-street parking shall be provided at a minimum ratio of 1 space per bedroom. On-street parking associated with the short-term rental unit shall be prohibited unless otherwise permitted by applicable city regulations. Number 8, a written indemnification agreement holding the city of Townsend harmless from all claims arising from the operation of the short-term rental unit. Number 9, for properties previously operating under subsection B2, documentation of a valid city of Townsend business license and tax remittance history. Number 10, a complaint log shall be maintained by the permit holder documenting all complaints received regarding the short-term rental unit and the corrective actions taken. Such records shall be made available to the city upon request. Section D, permit issuance and renewal. Number 1, the city of Townsend shall issue or deny a permit within 14 business days of determining whether the application is complete. Number 2, operating permits are valid for 1 year unless suspended or revoked. Number 3, permit applications shall be $250 non-refundable each year. Number 4, permit renewal applications must be submitted no later than 14 days before permit expiration. Number 5, operating permits are not transferable. Any attempt to transfer the permit shall render the permit void. A transfer of the ownership interest in the property itself shall also render the permit void, whether the transfer is voluntary or involuntary, and whether by deed, court order, foreclosure, by law, or otherwise. Number 6, except in instances where constitutional principles or binding state and federal law otherwise provide, the provisions of this article and any ordinances or other measures concerning short-term rental units are not to grant a vested rights to continue as a short-term rental unit indefinitely. Number 7, any short-term rental use, any permits for short-term rental units are subject to provisions of other ordinances, resolutions, regulations, codes, or other city of Townsend and or state of Tennessee measures that have been or may be enacted or adopted at a later date. Even though such ordinances or resolutions, regulations, codes, or other city of Townsend or state of Tennessee measures may change the terms, conditions, allowance, or duration for short-term rental unit use, with or without some period of amortization. Number 8, the city of Townsend shall enforce compliance through a graduated enforcement process consisting of A, written warning for initial violation, B, civil citation and fines for subsequent violations, C, suspension of permit for repeated violations, D, revocation of permit for continued noncompliance, material misrepresentation, threats to public safety, ownership change, inactivity exceeding 30 months, parentheses 30 months, or repeated violations of applicable law or regulations. Repeated violations shall include 3 or more substantiated violations within a 12-month period. Number 9, any denial or revocation may be appealed to the Board of Zoning Appeals within 30 calendar days. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect from the final passage and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void, the public welfare requirement. Okay, may I get a motion and a second to accept ordinance number 359-26-1C?
Make a motion to accept ordinance number 359-26-1C.
Have a second.
Second.
Okay, city manager, can you reflect on this?
Yeah, so this ordinance comes from, really kind of started with the planning commission. We all had discussed the tourist residents, and also discussion about permitting process, which was mentioned in the ordinances, which we did not have. In researching other municipalities, our neighbors, City of Maryville, Superior County, and how they deal with it, from life safety aspect, that's where we borrowed heavily from our neighbors to make sure we weren't doing anything that was out of the ordinary. Speaking as a fire chief, this life safety is long overdue. I stated last month and in previous meetings, I have been on scene where we found smoke detectors were not operating in these short-term rentals. Also in there, if y'all notice, changing the definition, we need to align our definitions with the state of Tennessee. That will help us out in any litigation if it ever happens. We need to make sure we align ourselves with that. So So the tourist residence, which was really ahead of its time in 2017, state passed it in 2018, and called the short-term rental units, which is the language everybody else is using. So this is a big step. I think it's probably the first step regarding short-term rental units, but this is a pretty big first step, and I think it's one that's overdue.
Thank you, City Manager. I would agree that this is an important first step. It's not the only step. We've talked about this before in some of our workshops about short-term rentals. I'm really pleased that our new community plan talks about short-term rentals, and I think this is an important step. We had a good discussion about it in the Planning Commission, and having some mechanism to be able to align our definitions and to be able to develop a permitting process is really important. We need to get a handle on this, Commissioners. As I've made some reference before, I'm quite concerned about our housing stock here in Townsend. And we have a number of units, I can tell you as I go out, knock on doors, where I'm quite aware that the folks who come to the door are not full-time residents, not citizens. And it's different even than 4 years ago when I did that. And if we don't pay attention to our housing stock, if we lose a balance of that, then that will be very detrimental, I think, to all the aesthetics, all the values, all the vision that our citizens and our visitors and our businesses want that are contained in that community plan. So I applaud the Planning Commission for taking this forward, and for City Manager, City Recorder have done yeoman's work to try to put together this ordinance. I think it's in really good shape, and appreciate them doing that. So with that, those are my reflections, and happy to have other questions.
I've got a couple. Where it talks about number 6, C6. If it's units exceed 12 occupants, which have a consent of commercial lodging. Do we have that defined? Do we have that?
Yeah, there actually is State Farm Marshal's determination of that, so that's actually following state law. So really, right now, anybody that's doing that is exceeding more than 12 is in violation of State Farm Marshal's office.
But do we have commercial lodging in our things in other places?
So that exact term, one of the things that the Planning Commission has asked to discuss next month is hotels, definitions. What you have in front of you is the first step. Right now, I can't, I mean, we've had some people going out and looking, but I don't have a way to tell exactly how many short-term rental units we have. This first step lets me start wrangling them, and lets us as a city to get a handle on it. I do anticipate coming back and maybe some changes to this and some additions, but this is the first step. So what happens by saying that's commercial lodging, that puts it to a separate thing that doesn't have anything to do with this, is what that's saying. In other words, because really short-term rental units are this weird thing that you get to have lodging, but you're not, you're not under the same constraints as a hotel. So by this, we're coming and saying, well, yeah, but you still have to do life safety. You still have to make sure that you're providing safety for your visitors. When you go over 12, you get into sprinklers, you get into a lot of other stuff that the state comes into. So that's what that first discussion is.
Two other real quick things. It talks about a permit application fee. Do we have a renewal fee?
No. First one not. Permits are valid. Permits are valid for 1 year, and the next year is $250. So it's $250 a year because there's an inspection that comes along with that.
From the day that you sign up, not January,
The day
right?
you sign up, I don't want to get it prorated.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last thing was, I didn't see anything on here unless I kind of missed over it, and I know you can't list everything, safety laws, but you know that if you're on a second story or a third story, the ladders that go out the window, is that something that,
Those are generally not required, but they do have to be able to get, I mean, I'm not trying to sound callous here, but jumping out a second story window, you may get a broken leg, but you can get out of the building, sometimes it's safer than ladders. Most of the time, you don't know how to use a ladder. But they have to be able to get out. So there's a lot more that comes in the unpacking of this. This is the first step. There's a lot of other issues that come with short-term rental units that we're going to have to tackle throughout the year. First step is life safety and getting a handle on how many we have out there operating under permit.
Can I ask a quick question?
Real quick, one
Okay,
question.
on the last section, number 7, any short-term rental use, okay, just stop right there. Is it defined somewhere what the short-term rental use is?
Go ahead, Steve. I think it's in here.
And just, all due respect, if someone say, make sure we don't get into taking too many questions from the audience, because but yeah, so short-term rentals are addressed in the definition, and that is dwelling that is rented wholly and partially for a fee for a period of less than 30 continuous days and does not include a hotel as defined by TCA 68-14302 or bed and breakfast establishment or bed and breakfast homestay as those terms are defined in TCA 68-14-502. That is a direct quote lift from TCA.
Commissioner Hedrick?
I have another one, sorry. On that same, in the definition part where it talks about single-family dwellings, what if the owner lives upstairs and they rent out the basement?
So now you get to bed and breakfast, could be, that's what we have to, like I'm saying, this is a beginning, right? This is a beginning. We have to look and see what the terms are. Is there breakfast, this is the beginning. I mean, right now, we have this many permits, right? So, as we go along, there's gonna be other questions, there's gonna be other stuff that we're gonna have to deal with as a city, but we've got to start eating this elephant one bite at a time.
I have a question, just because it's a little confusing to me, therefore it'd be confusing to other people, I think. Under B, permitting requirements, it says all persons eligible to operate a short-term rental unit within the city of Townsend, regardless of property zoning district, must apply for short-term. I know we're going to talk about it, but is this all?
Yeah, so in the ordinances, where it calls for a short-term rental was specifically asked in R1. So this is clarifying that it doesn't matter what zoning district you're in. If that zoning district allows short-term rental use, you have to get a permit.
Okay.
I have a question, number 10. A complaint log shall be maintained by the permit holder for documenting all complaints received regarding the short-term rental unit, and corrective action taken. Such records shall be made available to the city upon request. You could get a lot of complaints with a log like that. Could we change that to maybe a life safety complaint?
I think we
From
can
individuals,
Yeah.
because if you ask for a complaint log, you're gonna get anything from the remote, the batteries were dead in the remote, or little petty things. There wasn't a silverware or cups or a chip in something. So you could get a lot of complaints, and that's a lot for somebody to log if you have multiple units. So if we could log just the safety aspect of it.
We can change it to clarify, and that was going to be our guidance to the rental operators. Also, we have to include language in there that it is a misdemeanor to file a false complaint. So we will have to publish that language as well as required from TCA.
I think there's more than just life safety that needs to be recorded. For instance, if they get a complaint from a neighbor that people are parking in their in the yard and blocking driveways, those complaints need to be logged also, not just whether the smoke detector works or not.
I think as the program grows, we will realize who are good owners and who are short-term rental owners that would provide a problem to the city. A complaint log will be helpful to see how they handle certain things. I think it's on us to tell them you don't have to, if the remote's dead and the batteries are dead, you don't have to tell us that. But I don't want to get too specific in here because then it's like, well, what about this and what about this? But I understand what you're saying, and I think our direction will be to them, we need to see the life safety. And the complaint on what we regulate. We can't regulate some things, so we really don't need to know those complaints. It'd be a complaint on what is regulated.
I do have one other question.
If I can comment on that point, because I think Mr. Martin did make a good point. One of the things we learn with each of these regulations that we put in place, and we can come back and modify the regulation, but there's probably also guidance and other things that you'll need to develop to help, facilitate these people, these permit holders. And so as you're getting some experience with the types of complaints, you could potentially address that through some sort of a guidance, a handout, educational piece or something, short of having, to be real prescriptive in the ordinance. But I think we'll learn as you indicated. So I'm comfortable with it as it is, but I just, make that suggestion to keep in mind.
So one other question. At the bottom of B1, it says operators must have a valid permit before advertising the short-term rental units for use, accepting reservations, or allowing occupancy for short-term rental use. Is there a penalty for not doing that? I mean, it's nice to say that, but
So you're all, I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing you too, Commissioner.
okay. Well, you're saying they can't rent it ahead of time. They can't advertise it ahead of time until they have a permit.
Right.
If they do, what's the penalty?
Yeah, there's not a penalty phase yet, that will come, I mean, I've got to get, this is the first step of getting, and that's, there's more to,
Well, the fact that you say operators must makes it sound like there ought
well,
to be some.
I think there will be, but we're going to be busy enough getting everything in line
Okay.
first. But, I think, most of my experience, at least 80% of the population want to do the right thing, 90%, 10% give you a hard time, and there's 10% that unfortunately you're going to have to get more aggressive with, so.
Okay? Other discussion? I think it's a good place to start. Commissioner Smith, Beth Weisenegger?
Yes, just if I may, I have spoke to several people that do Airbnb. They live out of town. It's having the section on number 4 here, having a designation of a local contact person available that can be there on site on their property is super needed. Especially because there's so many people that do live out of town that own cabins or condos that, so full disclosure, like for me, I have owners at Cades Cove Landon that live out of town and I'm an Airbnb host, okay? But I also clean the rooms, host the rooms. Not necessarily like a property manager, I'm a host, okay? But I live on site, so it's important to have people nearby locations for short-term rentals in case of an emergency. It has happened before. But the people that I have spoken to, like, I don't own the units that I host, okay? I'm just there to make sure the guest gets in okay, make sure they're safe while they're here, etc. Where was I going with that? Let me catch my thought here. Oh, so I have spoken with multiple, owners down there that either on their host or they're not, but they might just have a cleaner. They might just have somebody that comes and cleans, but they are hosting their unit from Florida or Missouri, so that's important to have in here. All that to say though, they are for having this regulation. They totally understand why the city needs to implement something like this. And I have had no negative feedback from the city overall doing this. This is a good thing. Safety is a good thing. You have to have that with these short-term rentals. If you don't have people that are there to maintain your property and you just have a cleaning service that comes, well, they're not your host, they're not your manager, they're not taking care of your stuff, they're not taking care of your people. They're kind of just on their own at that point. So this is very important to have for the city overall, and that's full disclosure. Me as Airbnb host, doesn't matter. This is a good thing, and the owners do agree.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think that's helpful. There's a lot of really good things here. I think this is an excellent first step. Any further questions? Okay. All in favor of ordinance number 359-26-1C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ordinance is approved on first reading. Okay, Commissioners, that brings us down to our next item, which is our last ordinance. And this is ordinance number 360-26-1C, an ordinance of the City of Townsend clarifying short-term rental units as not allowed to operate in the R1E zoning district and the allowance of short-term rentals to operate in the B1 zoning district. So we'll take the same approach. I'll read it out, then I'll ask for a first and a second motion to get it up for discussion.
Do you want me to read?
That'd be true.
Okay.
Okay?
Give me a break.
Over to you, Vice Mayor, to read it out, and then we'll ask for a first and second.
All right. All right, so we are on ordinance number 360-26-1C, an ordinance of the City of Townsend clarifying short-term rental units as not allowed to operate in the R1E zoning district and the allowance of short-term rental units to operate in the B1 zoning district. Whereas the City of Townsend has established zoning districts as a means of protecting the health, safety, and general welfare of its residents and the public, and whereas the City of Townsend periodically finds it necessary to revise, amend, and clarify the zoning districts of the city, and whereas one of the intentions of the R1E zoning district was to prohibit short-term overnight lodging in the district. However, the ordinance language fails to explicitly include the term short-term rental units, and whereas one of the intentions of the B1 zoning district was to allow short-term overnight lodging. However, the ordinance language fails to explicitly include the term short-term rental units, and whereas the city desires to clarify the intended allowances of each zoning district. Now therefore be it ordained that the Board of Commissioners for the City of Townsend as follows. Section A, amend the zoning ordinance, Section 8-601, R1E, low-density residential exclusive. Number 2, uses not permitted as follows. Number 1, amend Section B to read hotels, motels, lodges, clubs, restaurants, taverns, short-term rental units, and similar services. B, amend the Townsend zoning ordinance, Section 8-604, B1 Tourist Business District. Number 1, uses permitted as follows. Number 1, amend Section F to read hotels, motels, short-term rental units, and bed and breakfast. Be it further ordained that this ordinance takes effect from the final passage, and that any part of any prior ordinance to the contrary is hereby declared null and void, the public welfare requiring it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can I get first and a second to accept ordinance number 360-26-1C?
Make a motion to accept ordinance number 360-26-1C.
Second?
Second.
Okay. City manager?
Yes, this actually comes from the planning commission, and R1E, the intent obviously was to not allow for short-term rental units, however, it does not expressly say that. B1, you can infer that it does, but it doesn't say that. The feeling was that just to clarify, to make sure that the intent is in black and white, to go ahead and put short-term rental units in as not allowed in R1E and allowed in B1.
Thank you, city manager. That's my recollection from the planning commission, just to be more explicit with respect to R1E and with B1. Commissioner Hedrick?
Yeah, right now it's R1E, which is low density residential exclusive, and there's only one area, which is back here, I think, the R1E. Yeah, sorry. But there's a lot of R1s. I mean, there's a couple of R2s. I would like for it to be changed to just R, or at least R1, or R2. Personally, I'd like it to be prohibited in B1 as well, because we have a lot of citizens that live in B1. I know there were some mixed emotions about allowing residences back in B1, but I guess, you know, if you're trying to minimize growth that we don't want, this is something that I feel like in our districts that we should at least prohibit.
Thanks, Commissioner Hedrick. I understand your sentiments here. I think this is the first step that we're taking tonight. This ordinance really sort of clarifies and makes explicit our intent on R1E and on B1. But I hear you, and I understand those sentiments.
What's the difference in low density and low density exclusive? I mean,
Well, I think city manager is going to provide some reflections on this, but there are enough, we haven't allowed these in R1E for a while, and so I don't know that there's this type of operation is happening there. But city manager, you want to weigh in on this?
The R1E obviously was wrote with the hotels, clubs, restaurants, short-term rentals, and similar services. I don't know why Chestnut Hill was on the one that was R1E, but it is, and I don't know why. State law prohibits us from going in and shutting down existing, really, the short-term rental units. That state law that references the short-term rental units was enacted to protect them. So we're fighting up against that. I do think you all need to have a discussion, not tonight, because it's going to be a detailed one, about do you want to limit them in residential areas? Do you want to cap them? Do you want to work towards getting them out of residential areas? But you can't just say they're not allowed in there anymore if it has to shut down. We will get immediately sued and probably lose.
I would think maybe the ones that are existing would be grandfathered in, and there'd just be no new ones go in. But, I mean, residents, if you're living there, and some visitors are nice and courteous, and some are not, but say if you're trying to sell your house, and the people coming in, oh, that's a short-term rental, you're gonna have transient people all the time. They're not gonna want to buy that, and that's
One of the problems is that actually the property value, if you sell it as a short-term rental, increases. And so what we have to be very careful about, and I agree, and that's why I say I think it's a bigger conversation in protecting our neighborhoods, and how do we go about doing what you all want to do in a way that is compliant with state law and protect us in court if we get sued. The permit, if you'll notice, is not transferable if it sells. So there are certain things that we can discuss. We'll need some legal handholding as we go through it, because right now we're on pretty firm ground. The ordinance we just passed is very focused on life safety. The state really supports the life safety aspect. When you start devaluing people's property and you start terminating their investments, the courts tend to look on that a lot harsher than they would. So we have to, as a city, I think we have a right, and I think we have a duty to protect our neighborhoods. But we also have that duty to make sure that we do it in a proper way, that we don't wind up in court and lose.
Thank you, City Manager.
I know you've got the discussion later on the moratorium. So how is that, if you do the moratorium, that's not allowing any more? How is that different than saying we're not going to allow any more? Period.
So can we vote this one off about the moratorium?
Okay.
We're gonna come to that.
Yeah.
We're coming
Not,
to
Okay.
yeah.
Any other?
I wanted to point out, Becky, that our current zoning for R1 tells you you can have a tourist permit in R1. So if you were going to change it, you have to go all the way back to the ordinance and change it. Because in the definition of R1, it allows a tourist permit.
Specifically.
And I know retirees that want to retire here, a lot of times will buy a home here and rent it out while they are finishing up wherever they live to move here. They use it just to kind of subsidize their income to pay for their home, to eventually move here and become a resident. So I have some people that have done that over the years that live here, that they use their home as an Airbnb while they were finishing up their career somewhere else to come here to retire.
I can tell we're going to need some additional discussion. It's good to start to think about those things. We're taking some first steps tonight, I think. Commissioner Hedrick, another one?
I like, we moved campgrounds out of B1 and made it B3. I'd like to make a motion while we're doing this update to move hotels and motels out of B1 and put it in B3. While we're changing the verbiage right now.
Is there any way we can pass this tonight and work on that at a later time? Because that's going to take a lot of time. We are running that at almost 10 o'clock at night.
So I would rather come back with some legal decisions on that. I mean, I definitely take it up, but Commissioner Martin, we can get this done, and again, if you notice on everything, I'm trying to just, sometimes we get this, and then it seems like we don't ever get to where we need to be. Let's take some little steps, and we're working towards where I think everybody wants to be.
I know I brought that up several times, I just wanted to include that this time too.
Good to have that in the discussion. So thank you, Commissioner Hedrick. Okay, with that, I think that's all the discussion I hear. All in favor of ordinance number 360-26-1C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's passed on the first reading. That brings us down to the last item on our new business, and I really want to thank everyone for your attention. This is a long meeting, we sort of anticipated, but you all have been fantastic on this. The next item, number 4, discussion possible action regarding recommendation forwarded to the Board of Commissioners from the Planning Commission regarding a moratorium on tourist residences, short-term rental units. And so, as you all are aware, at our last Planning Commission meeting, there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission that the Board of Commissioners consider putting in place a moratorium on new tourist residences. And so I think, again, it's important to take a number of steps. I think we've already taken a few steps here tonight. Putting in place a moratorium, you have to have some of those pieces in place that we are starting on tonight. So you have to figure out, what is your inventory of these types of short-term rental units to be able to put something like that in place. But we wanted to have this on the agenda tonight for some discussion because it did come from Planning Commission, and so it is one approach. I'll pause for just a minute and ask the city manager to reflect a little bit on what would be the possible approach you might take in terms of enforcing a moratorium such as the one that the Planning Commission proposed.
And so that wasn't this month, but last month, so we're 2 planning commissions ago.
Oh,
And-
thank you.
And that was the first really on the radar. We're gonna address the short-term rental units. My feeling right now is I don't know what's out there. There's not a permitting process in place. So if you call for moratorium, then I have to bring ordinance back to you next month. And that's 2 readings, so we're 2 months into that. We're 1 month now out from a permitting process. Moratorium, you can only for so many months. So I think we've done in that time the legwork and the ordinances that really made that moratorium necessary. And so my recommendation is let's proceed on the path that we're on. I'm not sure what a moratorium would buy us because it's going to take a couple of months. We're 2 months out right now from it anyway, and I have a permitting in place at that time. I think instead you're going to talk about, if I could be so bold, and the planning commission is what zoning districts are we going to allow them in, not allow them in? Are we going to put a cap on them? Those sort of questions need to be had before moratorium, because the moratorium is going to take us long to put in place, and then I'm going to have to figure out, make sure everybody's got a permit. Logistically, we're going to be where we need to be before we can actually put the moratorium in place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my question was the reasoning for the moratorium, because I know there was something about 6 months moratorium. So it's like, how many new ones will actually go in that amount of time? And if you're wanting to stop it just for 6 months for those same things, why don't you just have no new ones at all if you're that worried about things?
My problem is I don't know which one to do and which ones aren't. And that's where we're behind the 8 ball. That's what we're fixing this plane as we fly. I can't, I've got to get a handle on who has a permit. Nobody has a permit right now, and it's not their fault. We don't have a permit to get it. So we've got to get that in place before we know what we have and what we can deal with. I think we've got to get a handle on it before we can say a moratorium. I understand the reasoning behind the moratorium, and especially it sparked some really good conversations, and it's got us to where we are now. Logistically, I think the path we're going down right now is more productive than a moratorium. We could run it parallel, but I don't see the benefits to the city in trying to enact that when we're going toward the permitting process.
Thank you, City Manager.
What are the requirements for passing a moratorium? Is it a ordinance or is it a motion from the city commission? Well, I don't know what the legal method for having a moratorium is, so I'd be interested in knowing that.
Prior cities use ordinance. But as we stand right now, how do we limit that? If I'm not requiring you to have a permit, how do I tell you no, you can't? So it's, the permitting process is what we've got to have in place, so. But it's an ordinance. Now, I don't know, we can talk to legal counsel, but other cities, city mayor was ordinance.
Other questions?
We do have a couple of Airbnbs I know that do have business license, correct? Just
Some
that
have
have
business.
come in and,
We've had quite a lot coming in, getting business license. But again, a business license can cover several units. So,
But it is a start of knowing somewhat of those that are gonna be, those people that have got business licenses are more than likely gonna be in compliance on what we're asking. And it
Right.
gives us a basis to start.
it does, and literally what we have been, and members of the planning commission been doing is going on Airbnb and thinking they know where the house is, and yeah, that's the house. I mean, that's, and finding these, we tried software and stuff, software helps somewhat, but locating these is the challenge.
As someone mentioned earlier, the Bronco Fest, if you drive around and see some Broncos, that's an Airbnb.
Could be.
Well, I think, you know, we have to ask ourselves, well, what will happen at the end of the moratorium? And the questions that we need to answer are, you know, what do we want this to look like? Do we want to, you know, make further restrictions on certain areas, like we touched on tonight? Do we want to put a cap in place? And so these are the things I think the Planning Commission needs to be working on and bringing us some recommendations now. I think ultimately, if you had a moratorium in place, you're still going to be confronted with these things when you get to the end of it.
Yeah.
And I would feel like, I think like we've taken some steps here, and we've given our city staff a big job to get this permitting process in place. Of course, we still have another reading to go on this ordinance. But I think, you know, we've taken a significant step in terms of, you know, trying to get a handle on this and understand what that inventory looks like. I'm very proud that we've done this work tonight, because we do need to pay attention to our housing stock in Townsend. So, thank you all very much.
I did have one other thing.
Yes, sir.
Before we discuss this, I took the moratorium as a timeout while we put ordinances in place. We're saying that really can't happen, because you don't know what's there.
Yeah, I would think, because we're telling somebody what they can't do with their property.
Right, okay.
Any other discussion on this? Okay, I think we've done a lot of good work tonight on behalf of our citizens on these items. With that, let's move down to the next item on our agenda, public input for items not on the agenda. We got anyone signed up to speak, or anybody got any gas left in the tank? Give us a comment. Okay. Seeing none, announcements and statements. I have one statement on the, or announcement on the swinging bridge. I was very pleased to see that the county went out for a request for a proposal to move forward on that project. I've gotten a lot of questions from residents. City manager and I met with a representative from Dark Island folks over there to explain and give them an update on what's happening with the swinging bridge. So that swinging bridge, the moorings reside on private property. And so that's one of the challenges that you all know that we've been working on. And the city attorney and the county attorneys have done a whole lot of research on that to see what that can look like going forward. And we're trying to put in place a solution that will not only repair that swinging bridge, but will keep up with the maintenance from now on. So I'm grateful for the county to step up and do that, and I was very pleased to see that they had announced their request for proposals recently. So that's what I wanted to share with y'all on that. Okay, anything else? Bingo?
I think I sent you all an email about the Hidden River screening here on May the 12th. So if you'd like to RSVP for that, just let me know, or I can send you the link. Last time we had it, great turnout. So if you can come out May the 12th at 6:30, Charity Rudder with Freshwaters Illustrated will be here to show that film again. So we're very excited to show it again.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.